Joining me right now, Ross Garber, CNN legal analyst and expert on impeachment. He's represented 4 governors in impeachment proceedings, and Shan Wu, CNN legal analyst and former federal prosecutor. Thanks for being here, you guys. Ross, everyone is waiting for this fuller filing, if you will, from the president's team. I mean, it really could come any minute. They filed just 6 pages so far. What are you looking for in the full filing?
See, I'm expecting and I'm looking for it to be sort of consistent with what has already been filed and with the president's sort of tactic all along. I think it's going to be direct. I think it's probably going to be pretty pugnacious. And I think it's going to sort of recognize this sort of partisan dynamic that's going on here. I think that's what we're going to see from the president. Very, very, very probably, I think, straightforward. You know, the House's filing was much more sort of erudite, a little bit academic. But I think from the president, we're looking for something very direct and very political.
So, Shan, what does the House manager's filing tell you about their legal strategy going in? I mean, it was over 100 pages, as Lauren is laying out. What does it tell you how this is, when they do get to the Senate floor, what's going to happen?
Well, I think the House manager's briefing indicates that they've correctly anticipated the president's approach. As Ross was saying, we expect it to be very combative. But the president's approach is really just trying to ignore the facts by giving some constitutional cover to the defense team. The House integrates that issue because they cover the constitutional basis, really making the point that this is exactly the kind of instance the framers were thinking about when they put in the impeachment provision, and also blends in the particular facts of this case to show it. So they're doing what you would expect of good lawyers to do, which is here's the law, here's the facts, let's put them together.
So this gets you mentioned the constitutional question, and this is kind of where this, I don't know if we call it a strange place where this is in this very moment, because one of the president's attorneys, Ross, took to TV this weekend to argue a key constitutional question, I guess, being raised here. He's raising it. Here's Alan Dershowitz on CNN yesterday.
Without a crime, there can be no impeachment. It certainly doesn't have to be a crime. If you have somebody who completely corrupts the office of president and who abuses trust and who poses great danger to our liberty, you don't need a technical crime.
And that right there was Alan Dershowitz of 1998. Why should anyone believe Alan Dershowitz then, Ross, today, if he was on the opposite side of this constitutional question during Clinton impeachment?
Well, sometimes lawyers change their opinions based on learning new things or different evidence or evolving, who knows. But look, Kate, I'm not sure of anybody who's defended more impeachments than I have. And even I think Dershowitz is wrong on this. I don't think you need a technical criminal violation for there to be an impeachable offense. And there are lots of reasons for that. There weren't very many criminal offenses for quite a while after the Constitution was adopted. And one can imagine sort of an incredibly egregious action that affects the office that isn't necessarily a crime. Also at the time of the writing of the Constitution, the framers knew the phrase high crimes and misdemeanors. It had been applied in England, and it didn't necessarily require an actual commission of a crime.
So it's not just Alan Dershowitz, though, Shan. Another member of Trump's legal team has made a similar argument just this morning. Let me play what Robert Ray said.
This is an impeachment that is fundamentally and constitutionally flawed. Never in our history has there been an impeachment of a president without even an allegation that a crime was committed, and that under the circumstances given that, that is untethered to the foundational principles that come from the Constitution itself. And, to drift away from that is essentially an effort, and a partisan one at that, to attempt to remove a duly elected president.
Okay, so you have that from Robert Ray. And let me read from another well-known constitutional law professor who wrote this in the Washington Post, this from Lawrence Tribe. The argument that only criminal offenses are impeachable has died 1,000 deaths in the writings of all of the experts on the subject. But it staggers, it staggers on like a vengeful zombie. In fact, there is no evidence that the phrase high crimes and misdemeanors was understood in the 1780s to mean indictable crimes. The Constitution hasn't changed in 20 years. What is going on here then? It's not just Alan Dershowitz. You're hearing basically the same from Robert Ray this morning.
Well, Kate, you've heard of moral relativism. This is like impeachment relativism. The Trump's lawyers really are just saying that for our cause, for our president, we think that this would improperly interfere with the election. And, you know, that's the whole point of the impeachment provision is someone's been elected and there's a problem. This is how you get rid of them. What they're really trying to do, Dershowitz, and really Starr's there for the same reason, they want to read the impeachment provision right out of the Constitution. They want to make it surplusage and say it just can't be used under any circumstances because it will always interfere with the election. And that makes no sense. The framers didn't just throw it in there willy-nilly for fun. They threw it in there for a reason.
And so then, Ross, as someone who has defended governors, defended public officials in many an impeachment proceeding, why do you think, at this moment, 24 hours out from the beginning, you really have at least two of the president's attorneys focusing here, focusing on this?
Yeah, you know, one would think that it might defy common sense because it plays into an argument that, yeah, the conduct may have been really bad, but it wasn't a crime. I don't think that's what they're doing here. I think the advantage of this argument is probably that it's straightforward. It's simple. No crime equals no impeachment, and as the benefit...
Even if it's not logical or accurate.
And it has the benefit of having some historical basis. They'll point to, you know, Nixon, where there were crimes. They'll point to Clinton, where there was a crime alleged. I think that's probably the goal. But I think what we're going to see as this thing evolves is more of a little bit more of a refined argument, saying that his conduct was not wrongful in any way and certainly didn't rise to the level of an impeachable offense, something that it would disrupt the 2016 election results and potentially interfere with the 2020 election. I think that's what we're going to hear.
We're going to find out the next step in this, in some argument, very, very soon, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Ross. Thanks so much, Shan.